Yo, 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 what is up, my fallopian tubers? Cesario from the barrio. Coming back at you with another video for your butt. And man, I was just sitting here in my room, so, and looking around. And this video is just going to be kind of off the cuff, I guess, is what people call it. Just going to talk. I was in here, like, looking at a care package I need to open, but I really don't know exactly who it's from yet. Um, and then I was just thinking about my first Mickey Mantle card. So I said, you know what, let me make a video about that. So this is going to be a real loose video. So I don't know how it's going to go. I was thinking of, let me just kind of talk a little bit, make this a video. Like me, I love long videos, especially like nowadays when I'm driving to work. I drive a lot. All right. It's not uncommon for me to go to USC in the morning at 5 a.m., get there around 6, so that's like an hour. And I try to pick videos that are like half hour, an hour long that I can listen to while I'm driving, where I don't have to be looking at the screen all the time, showing cards, but more talking about baseball cards and the hobby. So lately, like, I've listened to a lot of Rolling with FD just because he has a lot of interviews all the time and his videos are longer. For a while, I was addicted to Pac-Man interviews. What's his name? Rip Hamilton. But Pac-Man, but he hasn't really done any lately. So Double D Vintage, he does a lot of long videos. But anyways, I said, let me do one that people can listen to while they're working, where it's not necessarily just showing cars. So I'm just going to talk about, let's see if I can make it a long video, talking about my first card purchase. My first Mickey Mantle purchase. Alright? And yeah, did I open it up? I wanted to say that of a collector, 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 in that order. But really, I guess deep down, I'm really a hoarder, man. This is why I was in my room just looking around, and it's like, this is what active, baseball card room looks like. I make, pulling out cards all the time and making videos. I make a mess, man. And I have more time to make videos than I have to do to clean it up, I guess. But yeah, so did I get over here? Did you get some of that? There's my dog, Lumpy. LSP. Yeah, she's like Leo, Shoebox Legends dog. She just chills most of the time, but she's always next to me. She follows me everywhere. So, anyways, the 1958 Topps Mickey Mantle was the first card, my first Mickey Mantle card that I ever bought. And I remember when I first like really got back seriously into the hobby. I'd want to say that I kind of stopped collecting cards from 94 to 04, so that was like 10 years. But when I think about it, I didn't really stop. I kind of stopped following baseball because of the roids and the strike and stuff like that. Mainly the roids. I really did not like watching all my heroes' records being broken kind of by cheating. You know what I mean? And a lot of people always like, oh, I bet you loved it though when people were fucking hitting all those home runs. And I was like, no, I didn't. I really didn't. I didn't enjoy it. But that's just me. But like, I still appreciate baseball. Like, I'm not a big fan of these guys, but I have them on my wall. I still appreciate what they did. I still think they belong in the hall. Get their own ring, their own wing in the hall. A steroid era wing. But they deserve recognition. You can't just erase them from baseball. I truly believe that. I mean, Barry Bonds, I remember going to a couple of games at Dodger Stadium just to see Barry Bonds. I know he was on roids, but I still wanted to see it. I was amazed by Barry Bonds' eye. Like, I used to always believe, like, if Barry Bonds doesn't swing at a pitch, the umpire better call it a ball. Because Barry only swung at strikes, man. I thought his eye was, like, amazing. you know. And I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie. What's it called? Screwball, or I don't know what, I don't remember what it's called, but it was about roids, you know. And a lot of the roid guys said that when they were on roids, um, they could see the ball so much better. It seemed like it was coming in slow motion. So then that kind of like, oh well, because people would always say steroids didn't improve your eye and this and that, but turns out that it actually did. But anyways, I recess from that or whatever the hell you say. But let me get back to the 1958 card. So yeah. So I was saying, I stopped. I didn't stop collecting cards. I was still buying them. During that time, man, I was really living with my in-laws and working for what they call agencies, for work agencies. I just didn't believe my value was high. I just always accepted I was going to be poor my whole life, and I just worked for agencies for minimum wage all the time. Back then, minimum wage was like, $5. uh, and but whenever I would run across cards in the newspaper, because I was always looking in the newspaper for jobs back then. That's how we looked for jobs, was in the newspaper. And every once in a while in the sections, I would see baseball cards. So I would go, like, this is one that I bought off this one dude. I remember back in the days. Look at this. So sometime in the 90s, I bought this set right here from this guy. Look at that. 94 tops, full set. It had 770 cards of 795 for $4. All right. So, and then my cat used to chew on this box all the time. So I remember that for a couple of years I was buying cards from that guy. This dude used to work at a some kind of mail place, mailing stuff like a post office, but not an actual post office, mailbox etc. I think it was called. And I would go to his house whenever I have a little bit of money. The thing was that I would go to his house with like $20, $40, and it was pretty amazing how much stuff I used to get for that amount of money back in the days, in the 90s. But so I was not completely out of the hobby, but I wasn't. I had all my baseball cards in storage. So when I was living with my in-laws, man, I had a storage unit for like 10 years, and I had my baseball cards in the storage unit. Like, we were always planning on eventually moving out, so we had a stove, a refrigerator, some sofas, dining table. We had, and my baseball cards in a storage for like 10 years before before I was finally able to get an apartment on my own. Well, yeah, not normally on my own, but once my wife got a job, because she didn't work for all those years, while we were living on my in-laws, and then once she got a job, then we were able to afford. But at minimum wage, you can't afford your own place, especially with the family. So once my wife got a job, and you put two minimum wage jobs together, you could afford a really small bedroom apartment. So um, we moved out, and then and I forgot what triggered it. But oh, I was into comic books. I was still buying comic books, right? Um, and somebody told me about this place, Frankenstein's. Oh, you can get some comic books there. And I went there, and there was baseball cards. So I went to go. I was checking out the baseball cards, and you know, as a kid, I used to dream of vintage cards. And it's funny because I remember when I was a kid in the '80s, I used to think '70s cards were vintage. You know, but reality, if you think about it now, I mean, I'm talking about 10 years, 15-year-old cards to me were vintage back then. So it's kind of funny now. Like now, vintage has to be like 50-year-old cards to some people. That's one of the things. Like the Fox crew, Fox boys, Mateo. When you ask him, like what's vintage to you? To him, like 5-year-old cards are vintage to him. That's funny. But anyways, yeah. So that's the thing. I used to go to this show with like $20 spending limit, $40. If I worked overtime. And so I would buy a bunch of old, smaller vintage cards. And then one day I was looking at a '58 Mickey Mantle, and it was like $120. And then I was just thinking in my head, man, and I remember I went there a couple times, and I would ask the dealer to let me see the card, and after like 3 times where I went and I looked at it, I went there with no intention of buying it because I didn't have the money. But I would ask him to let me see the card, and I would get the card, and I would just look at it, the 58 Magnum, and I would look at it and look at it, and I just thought it was the coolest card. And then he's he's how much do you have? One day, and I said, I got 40. He's why can't I let you have 40? I'll give it to you for 100. He's in payments, and I said like layaway, because me and my wife used to go to Walmart and stuff like that to do layaway for our Christmas presents for our kids. That's when we could afford nicer things. He's like, yeah, I'll give you a layaway plan. He's hold it to, I'll give you a month to buy it. And I said, all right, I'll try. And I gave him the $40, and my whole thing was like, well, if every week I come here and I give him $20 from my paycheck every week for the next 3 weeks, I could get it out. And so eventually, after a month, I got my first Mickey Mantle card. And man, I was super stoked, man. And I swore, like, well, it goes for every card that I get. Like, I always think, like, I'm keeping this card forever. Like, this is my card. Like, my gray, it's like I got a grail. Every card sometimes feels like a grail card. And I was all excited. And I was like, oh, I'm keeping this card forever. My first Mickey Mantle, man. It was my pride. And I swore I would never sell it or trade it or give it away or whatever. Like, I just swore this card's going to be, it has what people call, what is that, nostalgia. Like my first card. And so let me show you. So right now I actually have two 58 Mantles. I have this one on my spine. Yes, it's a real card that's on the spine. And I believe this one is 150. Like, if you guys don't know, that's one thing I like about Topps, is that they always give the best players like the 50s or the zero cards. Like, they try to give the best player around card number 1. And then all the best players, 50, 100, 150, 200. So that's one thing about Topps. I could always go through all the 50s and 100s. I do believe Mickey Mantle was 150. Yes, he is. So that's the second 58 Mickey Mantle card I have. And but none of those Mickey Mantles are the my first one. So, this was a long time ago. This was a very, very long time ago. Before I started buying modern cards, like all I would buy was vintage that were my dream cards, and I didn't care about the condition, and I still don't. If I see a badass Roberto Clemente and it's got a slash, like right here, this is my first Sandy Koufax card that I ever bought. And I couldn't afford Koufax in good conditions. And then I saw this one in a binder. Look at that. It's got a hole right there on his forehead that looks like somebody did it with an eraser or whatever. And this card didn't come with this plaque. Somebody actually sent me this plaque a long time ago, and then I put this card in there. But this is the first Sandy Koufax card I ever got, because it was like $5 or $10, like cheap. So, have that one. So anyways, so the 58 Mantle, I posted it on Instagram, because I've been on Instagram for like 20 years, it seems like. And one of the dudes that I have been friends with on Instagram was a cool member of the card community. He messages me and gives me, and I remember opening it. It was like a big paragraph thing. It was like an essay that he wrote for an essay. And so he's telling me him and his dad have been putting together the 1958 set for years. 4 years. And that the last card that they needed was the 58 Mantle. And so, this is way before, like, this is when eBay, there was no COMC, there was no, a bunch of stuff. So they weren't easy to find, especially for people like us, because he was also, we were like in this group that were old fashioned. I still am old fashioned. I like to buy the cards from people I know. LCS, I like to buy them in person. I don't buy from eBay. I don't shop COMC. I don't do Dean's cards. Nothing against them. I have nothing against them. But it's just me. It's just like I don't buy online. So for us, it's hard to find some cards. Like me is like I collect sets, and I'm missing a couple cards here and there that I guarantee you, if I went on COMC, went on eBay, whatever, I'd probably find them right away and collect a set. But I do it the hard way. So anyways, so he tells me, this story and how that's the last card they need and they haven't been able to find it and this and that. So I made him a blind trade and I shipped it out to him. And that card was in pretty good condition from what I remember. I remember that card was like pretty solid. Like it was really good. Like didn't have that much damage like most vintage cards do. And so I gotta do this. So I sent it out to him and just told him, just send me what you think is fair, you know. And I remember him. He sent me like I think it was a Don Drysdale like rookie card. He sent me a bunch of good cards, but I don't think you were ever gonna make me happy. You know, you could have sent me a Ty Cobb, and I still would have been like, I can't believe I sent away my first Mickey Mantle. Like that Mickey Mantle itself, I just thought was like so sentimental to me. It was like, nostalgia. That's my first Mickey Mantle. I would never trade it. But how can you say no to that? How could you say no to that? So I just sent it to him, and they completed the set, and I remember how happy he was. So that was all great. And then I think I responded like once I got my cards that he sent me. I think he could kind of tell that wasn't like 100% satisfied, but it wasn't so much like I thought he was ripping me off or what he sent me was unfair. It's like I just had the sadness from like, man, I just gave away my Mickey Mantle, you know. And it just felt like at that time, like I'm telling you guys, back in the days, I was making like $5, $6 an hour at that time. So $100 was a lot to me, a lot, a lot. So I just thought I'm never gonna be able to replace that card, And so he tells me like after like he's like, hey, I don't, I feel like I probably didn't send you enough. And I told him, no, 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 it's not that you didn't send me enough. It's just I'm just sad to see my card go. I go, it's not that. I go, what you sent me was fair, probably even more than fair. I said, but yeah, I go, I just and so he tells me, he's like, hey, my dad said if you'd like to buy all our doubles from the 58 set for $1 each, right? And it was like, I don't know if it was like $150 or something. And the set itself, if you see, is 495 cards. So I believe, if I remember right, he sent me like close to 200 cards, but he's give it to me for 150. At first he had said $1 each card, but I remember the amount. I was like, I can't pay that. I wish I could. So ended up being around 150 bucks, and I got like half the set almost. And so I remember giving myself 5 years. I gave myself 5 years as a goal to complete my 1958 set, and it took me like 7 years. It took me like 7 years to complete it. Because mind you, I only bought these cards in person. So I would go to every LCS that I can find. I don't know why I say LCS. Every card shop that I can find. You in reality, everybody should only have one local card shop or a couple that have to be local. And if they're not local, it's just a card shop. Anyways, so it was hard, to complete it because it gets to a point where like I've gone to every card shop within like 100-mile range. I would drive to card shops an hour and a half away, 2 hours away, and look at every 58 that they have. And if I already had it, they had nothing for me. Or every once in a while, I'd find 2 cards here. Go to another place, find 5 cards. But it took forever. It got to a point where like I've exhausted all my means. Like I couldn't find any more 58 sets, and that was one of the. And then it took years after that, and then I found once I started doing YouTube, you get more of a broader audience, I guess, and people like I would make a video like I think I made a video. So, anyways, eventually I got a I got another 1958, and it was in a slab. So I got another 58 mantle, and it was in a slab. And it was around Christmas time because I remember making that video, and my Christmas tree was in the background, and my dogs were back there. And I cracked the Mickey Mantle out of the slab because I wanted to put it in my binder. So I have two videos up with that particular card, with me breaking the slab and me just putting it into my set. And with that video, yeah, look it up if you can find it. It's Pepino Man, and I think it's just like breaking a slab or whatever, cracking a Mickey Mantle out of the slab. Uh, from the beginning, I don't care too much about slabs. I don't care about how much they raise the value. So I cracked it, and luckily this is back then before there was big time backlashes. I remember a few years after that, if you were cracking cards out of their slabs, people were like, "You're stupid." I don't think I got any negative feedback on that. So I cracked it out of the slab and I put it in my binder. So I made so there was two videos I made on YouTube about that. And then that's when I found out how many good people and generous people were on YouTube. People just started sending me. I get care packages, and there'd be 1958s. People were asking me for my checklist. People would be asking me for my check, and I didn't really have a checklist at the start because every time I would go to the card shops, I would just take my whole binder with me, and look at all their cards and see if go through my binder and see if I had it. So then people started asking me for my checklist. So that's when I started making checklists. So I'd make a checklist, and people would just send me cards that I didn't have, or if they had one that was worth, some, some money, they'd offer it to me for cheap. And so that's partly the only reason I was able to complete my set after that, because like I said, all my local places were gone. So yeah, and eventually I completed the 58 set, which was it wasn't even my first vintage set that I completed. I think I completed the 69. The 69, my 69 set also came like that, where I bought a starter set for cheap of 69 after that. Like I got the bug for sets again. When I was a kid, that's all I did was collect sets. But these two, the 58, I don't know if you can see it. The 58 and the 69, those are my first two vintage sets that I put together. And yeah, that's where I caught the bug. And so around 2015 is when I decided to start collecting sets again. And I would go to the Target, the Walmart, and just buy blaster boxes to put together the 15 set. So from 2015 to present, I put all those sets together pretty much from blaster boxes. Just buy blaster box, and then put the set together. But once you get to like I have 20 left or 40 left, I would make a checklist and see if anybody else would have it, because it gets to the point where you could buy 10,000 blasters, but there's still these like 20 cards that you'll never get. You have these other cards. I have like 100 copies of Aaron Judge, but I never pulled the Bellinger. You know what I mean? So that's when I kind of got back into trading, but trading sets, like, hey, I need this for, and it's just kind of like a free swap. Or like, here, you give me your checklist, I got my check, here, this is what I got, and that guy sends you here, this is what I got. That was really like the only feasible way to complete sets. So anyways, yeah, that's how I completed my 58 set, and the story behind my 58 Mickey Mantle. I wish I still had the first one, but it doesn't really matter in the end. I don't think so. I think it was way better story that I gave it, not gave it away. I did a blind trade with my friend, and he and his dad finally completed the 58 set. You know, that's something that they had been doing like his whole life. At that time, my friend was like 18 or 17. He was younger. And so him and his dad had been putting that together for years, and I was able to help them complete it. So that was awesome. You know. So I don't know. I think that's it. That's my story of how of my first Mickey Mantle that I ever bought, and I still don't. I don't have the original card, but now I have two. And okay, this card, the second card that I have, somebody gave it to me, and I've asked before if you're watching this video and you send me this card because for whatever reason, man, I can't find out who it was that just gave it to me. Gave it to me. They gave it to me. I no pagué nada. They seriously gave me this card. I remember watching their video and they opened it, and I was like, oh man, that's a sweet. I wouldn't mind buying another 58 Mantle to put on the spine of my binder. And he's, I'll send you this one for free. And I didn't think he was serious. And I got this in the mail. So, I mean, somebody gave me, isn't that freaking amazing, guys? I mean, that's freaking amazing, you know? But yeah, you gotta love the hobby. I mean, I do miss the old days of YouTube where the card community, let's say just as recent as 3-4 years ago, it seemed like everybody in the hobby was a good person. There was a few bad apples here and there, but they were rare. Now it just seems like there's a lot of the money. I mean, money's the root of all evil, right? So yeah, where there's money, there's people gonna be looking to take advantage of people now. But anyways, that's how I got my first Mickey Mantle vintage card. And that's all I gotta say. Love the hobby and keep collecting baseball cards forever. Let me see if I remember anything else I could add. Yeah, so I got nothing else. So man, I don't know. Hope that was a decent talking video. Talking about my 1958 Topps Mickey Mantle being my first vintage Mickey Mantle that I ever bought. Yeah, and I could tell you a million hundred reasons why I love Mickey Mantle. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see. This is the whole thing about when I'm recording in this mode. I can't see when I flip the camera around, but I got like Mickey Mantle books. I read a lot of stuff about Mickey Mantle, and I watch a lot of videos about Mickey Mantle, and I always fell in love with his personality. I just mentioned this in a Double D video. He was talking about players when they get older. A lot of fans don't like to see that, and I'm one of them, I gotta admit. And I put a comment on there because Mickey Mantle always regretted playing a little too long for the money. Well, back then they needed it. But he was always upset after that he was never considered a 300 hitter, even though he hit 300 almost every year. But because play was declining, he ended up with a lifetime batting average of 299. So once you do that, you're not considered a 300 hitter. And he's like, man, I was a 300 hitter. He hit for average, and he always regretted that, But hey, that's the kind of stuff that happens, man. But yeah, anyways, I hope Double D, if you're listening, I hope you don't like. Hey, we just have a different opinion. That's cool. That's one thing about this hobby is like you gotta appreciate everybody else's opinions. And so anybody who doesn't know, like if you feel a certain way and I feel another way, it's not a controversy. It's not a argument. It's just a discussion. And I don't care how you feel. If you like PSA and I'm not a big PSA fan, I'm not gonna attack and tell you shouldn't collect PSA. You do what you want. But anyways, I'm talking too much. I'm babbling. Love the hobby again. Keep collecting baseball cards forever. Ciao. Can we make it a 30-minute video? Uh huh.